ESA started in 1883 and it was the Evangelisation Society of Australia.
With a vision of some Melbourne businessmen that had some money to put behind sending out itinerant workers to country Victoria to basically share the gospel in places where there weren't even churches developed back then.
So it was probably pretty wild time back then because it wasn't long before Ned Kelly was hung, so it was quite a pioneering sort of a time. ESA work isn't as itinerant in some ways, moving around. ESA still concentrates on country Victoria.
ESA workers seem to work in their community, working in churches and youth groups, running Bible studies and whatever, but I think their main thing that they're interested in is the camps that they run.
It gives people like me the opportunity to get away from a typical rural environment and community where there might not be so much opportunity for them to express their faith and just communicate spiritually with others. It gives teenagers especially a chance to just get along with people like themselves and just get away from everything for a bit and really get in touch with God further or just explore what they might not have before.
Primarily it's to run camps for youth across Victoria. Peter's involved in a radio station and also works a lot with schools.
It allows people to be sent out in amongst the people and to share the gospel with them and hear the good news and also to preach the good news.
I suppose it's God's hands and feet in a practical way. Christian individuals as working in a united way, on a united front, having an outreach in the local community.
Our goal is to partner with churches and build relationships so that we see more and more people hear the gospel, hear the good news about Jesus in the places that they live.
As a young person, I was sent along to the camps at Marysville with my brother. My parents they'd gone to ESA camps as young people themselves, so I guess I was destined to be sent to ESA camps as I grew up, and I loved them. So I went along as a junior camper, teen camper, been involved in leading on camps. Many years later I saw that ESA was looking for a worker in the northeast of Victoria, which is sort of where I'd grown up, and I wanted to put myself forward as available for doing some work up there.
Wendy Jones came along and we became part of her support team. So we would meet regularly with Wendy and pray together and financially support her. Wendy was very involved in the youth ministry here before she was married.
Wendy, my wife, was working with ESA after she finished Bible college and was working a couple of days a week for ESA in Benalla.
Wendy, when she was here, started the fast group, which was Friday after school thing. It became quite a thing when Peter was courting Wendy, that she would give the update to the kids, and you'd go in at the end of their session and Wendy would be there talking. All the kids would be sitting around on the floor listening to the latest developments.
And when we got married and moved to Bendigo, Wendy was still doing some ESA work. And Steve Nixon, who was the CEO of ESA at the time, he suggested that I finish up being a plumber and start with ESA.
Peter and Wendy came. Wendy had already been involved a bit with us, but to have Peter and his expertise already in outdoor ed, to have him come and assist me first of all and then take over things like canoe camps, fishing camps, and then introduce rock climbing camps and other camps. He's taken it to another level.
We started in part-time in 2001 and 2002, where I did some outdoor training and some Bible college, and then started full-time in 2003. ESA does ministry in different communities where workers are living and located. We have different roles that we do individually, but then there's things that we do together. Like I run a men's Bible study group, and
I've got a couple of ladies groups, Bible study groups.
That's probably where we'll feel the most connection. Isolated people to get together and to share what we have in common. And it's funny the contrast between the women's group and the men's group. Yeah, the women's group's very organised. Lisa always does the answers, does the homework, and we sort of just turn up.
Working with ESA, it frees you up to have time to put energy into those relationships and friendships.
I think ESA is different to some other ministries that were very country focused. It really, as part of its name, it's assisting other ministries. So we're assisting churches, we're assisting youth groups. There'll be a few young people out on farms that are, spread right apart, and we'll catch up with people. And so we run camps, and young people might come from all over the place from a whole bunch of different churches. It's not always in the one location, so that there's something near a lot of different rural people.
I always loved going on canoe camps out in a remote area, the start of the year, in the middle of God's creation, and just a great way to start off the year.
It's really helped me just to feel that hope again, and then just through other camps I've been on, like I've had a few chats with Pete, and it's just been really good to have that a bit of like mentorship and encouragement just in my walk with God.
It's like the big event that you look forward to. It's sort of your chance to really have a good bit of fun, just to do teenage stuff with other teenagers. So I've gone up to a Halls Gap one for a few years, and the fishing camp and the canoe camps. When you have your devotionals out in the environment like this, just to really get in touch with everything, it's just a really nice quiet time, especially with people like Peter. They're just so easy to get along with. They're real people. You can just chat face to face with them about whatever you want. But in saying that too, up at Halls Gap, it's always good to have when they have their worship sessions. Yeah, people get right into it, and it's just good to have people around you that are the same age as you, and you're actually enjoying it. When you want to be somewhere, especially where faith is concerned, it helps you grow tenfold.
I'm absolutely in awe when I drop kids off and I pick them up, and I see all these people who a lot have volunteered, others it's their holiday time, and they're spending them with teenagers. Now, I like teenagers, but I realise the energy level and the commitment is phenomenal.
By being involved in camps as a leader, it's really put my faith into action and live it out in my life in a visible way. I think I've been really inspired by the leaders and the ESA workers that I've been in contact with. I think they have unofficially been mentors for me.
One of the reasons that we send our kids to camp is that we live in a beautiful small country town, but our kids maybe sometimes might feel like they're the only ones who are Christian or view the world in a certain way. So we wanted to really give our kids that opportunity to be amongst other Christian kids and be mentored by other leaders, and it does strengthen their faith, and it just gives them a bigger picture of what it is to be a Christian.
We aim to make the camps fun, to have a good time as well as to hear the gospel. And they'll come back again and again and again. They'll have a good time and they'll ask their friends to come along. Then they go back to those churches and those youth groups, and hopefully things they've learned on the camp and experiences they've had will enhance their spiritual life, or they become a Christian and they can go along to a church. I can remember on canoe camp a young girl who wasn't a Christian, not from a Christian home, and she had come on canoe camp. And this girl had many conversations. She listened to other people's faith stories about how Jesus had impacted their life. A leader said to her, "Well, you've heard all this, what are you going to do about it?" And she said, "Well, that's what I want." And so just in the car, driving home, this girl prayed a prayer and is now a follower of Jesus. There's nothing more exciting. I think the greatest needs within ESA is prayer, number one. That we need people to pray with us and for us.
Regional workers should be well supported. I know it's always more difficult to support workers in Australia than overseas.
Sometimes we get too involved with supporting missions overseas to the extent that we don't support missions at home, and I think they are doing terrific work. They run a lot of camps, they're involved in a lot of things and a lot of things within the community, and I just think it's imperative for people who can to support where they can.
I'm really investing in my children and giving them opportunities, and my faith's really important to me, and I want that for my kids.
How much do you value a child's life? And you want to give them every opportunity to hear the good news about Jesus. Can you put a price on that?
We've got a handful of workers that are dedicated to ESA work, but we need a huge number of volunteers to assist them and make things like camps run.
Lots of different volunteer roles that are required on camps. There's cooking, there's playing music, speakers on camps, running small groups, and so really value the volunteers of ESA. The main criteria we're after is someone as a volunteer is someone who loves Jesus and has a passion for other people to know Jesus.
Part of my strong belief is, and part with ESA, is that people connect with other Christians.
To introduce people to Jesus and then disciple them in his way.
We really value our supporters, and they're as much as part of the ministry as we are.